I'd love to tell you about this very interesting international conference that we've just held here. But before I do that, I'd like to tell you a little story. Now, I'd like you to imagine something, and imagine a society that's reaching its peak, that is expanding economically and also in terms of space. And suddenly there is a disaster that affects many families, affects many fortunes. And people are wondering after this disaster, well, where are we going to go from here? And a group of very intelligent people start to think, well, let's attempt to have a cultural rebirth. Now, I'll get to the conference in a minute, but this episode that I'm talking about is not modern, early 21st century Europe or Ireland. I'm talking about the 14th century. This is precisely what happened in the 14th century. And the rationale of the conference came from a reflection of a number of us that there was a significant and very interesting parallel in this notion of a rebirth after a tremendous event. And there was enough of a parallel to be for a study of this event in the context of modern times and in the context of the times of the past, for this to be a very interesting theme. And so we held a conference involving 15 specialists in Renaissance studies from across Europe, Ireland, the United States. And we discussed this theme of Renaissance now, with an exclamation point, over a period of 2 days. The experts came from many different fields, from literature, various traditions of literature, to philosophy, to art history, biology, history of medicine, history of politics. And we discussed these themes. Now, the idea of the Renaissance, the word Renaissance actually goes back to a 19th century French historian. That's why the word is in French, although the movement, we believe, begins in Italy. When the Renaissance was discussed intensely in the 19th century, people tended to focus on the emergence of the individual after the Middle Ages as being a chief aspect of this period. Now Renaissance people tend to consider other aspects. In fact, the continuing allure of Renaissance times is really how our knowledge of this period seems to grow and seems to deepen in relation to our changing times. So as the generations roll, we are thinking about the period in a different way, and it seems to inspire us today, just as it inspired our forerunners in the 19th century. Now we're less concerned with the aspect of individualism and perhaps more concerned with the aspect of humanity. This is another chief aspect of the Renaissance times, the focus on humanity. And in particular, what the Renaissance tried to do, which was, as we say, a movement of renewal after disaster, or movement of renewal after a real basic social, economic change that's occurring in a society. So what the focus tended to be on was the area of culture. Now, so what is culture? Well, culture, I think, it's really the area where we communicate and we debate our values those things that we hold to be most important in our lives and which have been most important over a long time. Things concerned, for instance, with beauty, with affection, also with power, with glory. Our values concern the priorities we attach to these things and the way we talk about them, and the way we think about them, and also the way we communicate them. And so artworks are, in a sense, part of the communication of these values that we have about ourselves and about our context. So in a way, I think culture is really about who we are as humans. It's what distinguishes us as humans, and what the Renaissance liked to focus on, and what we're now beginning to understand more and more about the Renaissance was its humanity, its focus on what it was that particularly makes humans humans. And that is the need and the desire to communicate these values, because these are really the bases of our social DNA, our social and knowledge DNA that makes our societies what they are. And this is where we get that tremendous push of creativity that was such a remarkable aspect of the Renaissance in so many fields, from political organization to social organization to the arts to even technology. And all of these aspects enjoyed a tremendous force of movement from the combination of insights, but mainly connected with how can we become more human? How can we reinforce, study, and renew those aspects of us that distinguish us as beings, distinguish us, well, as people. And those, in fact, are, as we say, our values. Now, so at the conference, what we attempted to do was to look at the study of the Renaissance in, as I said, the widest context possible. And our insight was that the more knowledge we have about this period of the past and other periods when there have been cycles of renewal after tremendous change, the more knowledge we have about these aspects, the better off we are at dealing with the problems that we have in our own time. So I suppose I could say that the real result of the conference was a recognition that we really need more knowledge. In other words, not to say that we need more conferences, which is also true, but we certainly need more study, more focus on the humanities and on these areas of cultural development that are so important. And in fact, we need a Renaissance. And what we concluded was, we need a Renaissance now.